What's going on, data junkies? Alex here from King Cloud Consulting, and today's video is on APIs. Now, if you know more about IPAs than about APIs, just like I did when I started, then this video is for you. This is going to be a simple walkthrough of what APIs actually mean, what they represent, roughly how we use them, and it will not be a deep technical undertaking dive for computer scientists, engineers, and so forth. You might still learn a thing, so stick around. But again, this is really for beginners to try to make sense of what this term actually means. It's one that I see come up a lot in meetings, technical discussions online, and what have you. And it's one that causes a lot of confusion. I think there's ambiguity around it, so we'll try to dispel some of that today. And we'll do that with an example. So let's pretend that you want to go to the bank. You want to get some money out, okay? And we'll pretend this is you. Okay. You want to go to the bank because you want to either withdraw money, you want to deposit money, maybe make changes to your account. But the point being, you want to go to the bank. In this example, we're only going to focus on withdrawing and depositing of money. It'll be a simple universe. Now, when you go to the bank, they, in some capacity, let's say they keep your money in a vault. If you want to go deposit money, you do not walk straight into the vault. You don't have access directly to the vault, right? You instead interface with the bank through some sort of intermediary, like let's say an ATM. Now, I understand there's tellers, there's other nuances. It's a simple example, so bear with me. I'll put this dotted line here between the ATM and the bank, meaning the ATM, again, is an interface for the back end, okay? We get the resources of our bank account through that vault. Now, if I go into the ATM, right, I go into the ATM, and I need two things. One, I have my handy dandy credit card ready to go. All right, this is me with my fancy credit card. And I put it in, and it's like, okay, cool, we got your card. Now we need to input a PIN as well. And maybe my PIN is also 1234. Don't make your PIN 1234, but that's my PIN. So what I've done is I've gone in and I've given it kind of almost two forms of some sort of self-identification of sorts, loosely. And then once I go in, I see a screen, and the screen comes up, and the screen maybe tells me I can withdraw money. The screen tells me that I can deposit money, and so on and so forth. Now, what happens when I say withdraw money? I pull money out of the bank account. Well, I'm getting money that's coming from the ATM. And again, I understand nuances. Money's kept in the ATM, not the bank vault. But okay, if we pretend for a second that the money you're getting is kind of coming out of a vault, and the ATM is your method to get that money, well, how is it that I'm getting my money and I'm not getting your money? I don't know what this thumbs up is. I'm going to find a way to turn that off. How am I not getting your money? Well, I went into the ATM and I gave it my credit card and I gave it my PIN. And then even before I withdrew money, maybe it told me how much money was in my account. Why is it though? I think in this example I said you're going to the ATM, you're going to the ATM, fine. Someone else comes along to the same ATM, this is person number two, they put in their own credit card, they put in their own PIN, and they can see their own balance. They cannot see the balance of all the money in the ATM or all the money inside the bank. They only have access to what's theirs. So how does that work? Well, again, the ATM acts as an interface to the bank, which has the back end where all the money is. You and I are two different people. I have my form of identification and access to the bank. You have yours, right, through the ATM. I have my credit card and PIN. You have your credit card and PIN, right? Maybe the one you've got down here, this is another credit card and another PIN, right? 5, 6, 7, 8. And okay, I think you get the idea. APIs function a similar sort of way. So if I make some room here, let's start with this. The reason I didn't start with this, rather, I should say, is that API is short for, I believe it's Application Programming Interface. Now, maybe y'all have a lot more horsepower between the ears than I do, which is entirely possible. But this doesn't really mean much to me, right? This is why I wanted to start with the ATM example. I think that's a lot more clear. API is short for Application Programming Interface, and what it allows us to do is retrieve the data from a back-end system in kind of a programmatic way. It also means that there could be one system that has a whole lot of shared data. It can have all our shared data, multiple companies worth of shared data, but somehow I can only pull out my data. you can only pull out your data, and Alice and Bob can only pull out their own data as well. This is because of this that credit card and the PIN and that equivalent. So in this video, I'm not going to cover exactly how we're making API calls. I think this has been thoroughly covered on the internet, so I'll let you go ahead and dive deeper into it. Unless there's popular demand for it, we can do it. But what we really have here is, if I'm going to draw kind of an analogy between our finance example and our API example, maybe we'll do a little table here. In our example, in the finance example, the bank is really the system or the database, right? And so think about it this way. The bank does not want to expose you to the vault. It doesn't want to expose you directly to where all the cash is held, right? Because you could just go in and pull out someone else's cash, and it's kind of a free-for-all. In order to avoid that, they give us, again, I keep using this word, this interface, this programmatic interface to get money out or to deposit it, right? The ATM. A system or a database will do the same thing. Hey, we don't want everyone poking through the back end. We want to give them an ability to access their data in the back end, but they're only going to be able to do it, again, programmatically and through a secure way. So in order to solve for that, again, the bank gave us maybe an ATM. The system or database gave us what's called the API endpoint, right? Oops, spelling is hard. Endpoint, so is handwriting. All right, it's the API endpoint. So this API endpoint will be a URL, and that URL says if I make a request to this URL, I hit this URL, I then get something in return, or I can put something in similar to withdrawal or deposit. Now, following the analogy, if we had the credit card in our finance example, this could be a few different things, but I'll say this is usually called the API key. Sometimes you hear it called a token. And so this is the equivalent of my credit card. It's some form of identification to say, hey, this is me. This is the account, or maybe set of accounts that I'd like to access information from or deposit information to. The PIN we had as well as a secondary form of verification, so the card wasn't enough. We also needed to give, again, additional authorization or authentication, and there is a difference. Now with the PIN, I think this you could usually be called the secret or the client secret, but you'll hear this word thrown out a lot. So for sake of simplicity, we'll call it the secret over here. And now finally, the last piece that we had was the withdrawals and the deposits. And so we call those, I don't know what to call them in the finance sense, but we call those in the API world, we call those requests. Okay, so maybe I'm gonna write like withdraw / deposit. Okay, those are forms of requests. Now, if we think about the kind of requests I can have at an ATM, again, I can withdraw, I can deposit, maybe I can check my account balance, right? There's a limited number of things that I can do there. It's a similar idea with API requests. Generally speaking, we have a few different types of API requests. So types of API requests. And again, instead of pulling out money or depositing money, we actually, as I mix uppercase and lowercase here, we interact with our data in different capacities. There are 4 major types of requests. I want to make sure I didn't miss them. Such a long list, right? We've got GET requests. So this might be one of the most common. And a GET request says, I want to get my data, right? Plain and simple, pretty self-explanatory. I'm going to say, I want to retrieve my data. I want to take it out. Now, that doesn't mean that I'm taking it out permanently, right? So this is where the analogy slightly deviates. When I'm taking money out of my bank account, I have reduced the amount of money in my bank account. A GET request does not take the data out of my system, but it gives me a view into it. So if I've got a list of 1,000 customers, again with this thumbs up, if I've got a list of 1,000 customers and I make a GET request from the API for my list of customers, I will receive that list of 1,000 customers. They are not gone out of the system. I can make that GET request again. I'm going to get 1,000 customers. If I sign a new customer next week, I will have 1,001 customers when I make that request, and so forth. We're not depleting the resource of customers in this case. Maybe I'll go to the last one I had on my list, which would be the delete request. So delete request, I think that's pretty self-explanatory. This one deletes data. So in this case, if I said, please delete customer number 1001, that was a mistake, that will delete data from the back end. This is probably the one I use least frequently. I don't love deleting data. I think in a lot of systems, they kind of won't even necessarily let you delete it. You can archive it or mark it as inactive. I like this because then you don't get into trouble with making your data go by accident. But it exists, and you'll see lists of endpoints of APIs with the delete request or the delete request type delete endpoints. Each one of these is kind of you'll have slightly modified endpoints for the request. So you'll have a base URL that's kind of the API endpoint, we call it. So if you're maybe the Salesforce endpoint is developers.salesforce.com/API/ and okay, that's the base URL. Then maybe you'll have /customers, or you have /opportunities, or have /leads, and you can get those leads. You can delete those leads. You can also do two more things. You can make a put request, or you can make a post request. The reason I'm looking at my notes is because even after all these years, I still get them mixed up. Hopefully your memory is better than mine. Put requests will, or maybe we'll start with post requests. I think they're a bit more straightforward. Those are simply inserting of data. I would like to add customer number 1002. So I make a post request to a specific endpoint, and I make that post request, and I will push data up in order to create this customer. This allows me to do things at scale. I can create many customers at the same time. I can automatically create customers when, let's say, a deal is closed, right? And okay, this is why the API allows me to be a programmatic interface, because I can program automatic actions. I do not need to manually go click, click, click and create a customer, right? I don't need to walk into the bank vault and crank it open, do all this stuff. I tick, tick, tick on the ATM and imagine that's automated, and that's what this allows us to do. So posts are inserting data, and put is going to be the last one we look at, which is really updating or insert, update or insert data. This one might be a slightly new concept. Those haven't seen something like this before. If I'm doing a put request, what I'm saying is this: I'd like to insert this new customer number 1002. Now, if I try to update it and the system says, or rather, I try to insert customer 1002 and the system recognizes, hey, customer 1002 already exists, it will then update it if the information has changed it. It won't error out. It will not say, hey, pause out, like this person already exists. That would happen with the post request. It just says, okay, great, we'll update them if they already exist. If they don't exist, say I want to update customer or insert customer 1003 through a put request, it will insert the data if they don't already exist. So those are the four main types of requests. There are also different types of APIs. What I've described here is typically just a traditional REST API. This will be more than enough to get you through conversations, to make sense of what the heck's going on, and to have some idea of how APIs work. And I think we'll call it there. If you have any questions, drop them in the comments. If you want to follow up or there's information you think was skipped that would have been useful, let me know. And that will be it for today. We'll see you all in the next video. Take care.